and that is intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that, by intimacy, we're talking about connection at the deepest level. And really, when you hear like what Esmeralda was talking about, you hear all the things that we've been talking about, it's about that the healing needs to happen at that level. There were things that Ron Daniels said that people who just came in did not get to benefit from, but what we do, what I do, what Esmeralda does, carries on from that, and that is that he said, there's no politics without culture. And he has come to this understanding of the importance of culture, and that's the work that I did do. And I'm going to try to share that a little bit with you today, and I'm also going to try to rush through some things. But I did want to say, listening, there's a small book that I've done that I really like. And that's Let the Circle Be Unbroken. And it occurred to me that the circle, as we call it, is really speaking to the issues that we've been talking about. And it was developed for students, for young people, to convince them that they were African. And so it had to be, well, how? How am I, in what way am I African? And the answer is in terms of the deep structure of culture and of being. So I would recommend that. And of course, first I've got to republish it. So that's on me. So when you want to know what work am I doing, that's the work, that I'm doing. What I want to do now is I'm going to introduce a paradigm to us that I've suggested to be used to understand us as a people, what's happened to us, and what we need to do. And the paradigm is saying, but we can't do any of that without understanding who we are and where we came from. So, in my work, I always begin with the African worldview. And I want Jifa, that's my daughter, by the way. To put on something that just quickly, we're not going to take a lot of time with this, but this is something to give us a feel of a way of being and a way of thinking that is very, very different, opposing to the way in which we are trained trained to unthink in our behalf in the institutions of this nation, in the European institutions of the Caribbean. And so what you see, there are certain themes that I just want to pick up on here because I think they have relevance for our discussion. And that is, okay, this is is our presentation of reality, so to speak. And we perceive of the universe as a spiritual whole. Now, when I say we, I'm speaking as an African person. And I'm putting forth, and of course I got to defend that. Somebody's going to say, oh no, Africans think all kinds of different ways. I'm saying that there's a fundamental way of approaching reality that we share, that if we tap into that's our strength. Okay? So, the universe is a spiritual whole. Also, key, I think, is that all being becomes interrelated, organically interrelated and interdependent. Now that has implications for how we live, how we organize, okay, how we think politically. And I don't think that we have been seeing that. We haven't been seeing the connection between how we relate spiritually to the universe, our concepts of spirit, and then how we organize as a people in our own interest. And I want to argue, and that's what I'm arguing for in Let the Circle Be Unbroken, that the two should be joined. That we haven't used that power to organize politically or to think politically. So there's that interdependency And this concept results in a cultural structure that stresses communalism and communalistic forms and collective forms, which is another thing. We got that from what Esmeralda was talking about. The damage that's been done to us has resulted in us not being able to think collectively or to organize, and to act collectively. So clearly the healing then has got to be in collectivizing. And I believe that this is partly done very intentionally, that the value of individualism, which is written into the European worldview, is then, given to us because I believe that they understand that weakens us. Okay, that's one of the most devastating things that has happened to us. Materialism and individualism. Okay, and if you look at the African worldview, you have a basis for defeating both of those things. You have a basis for another way of looking at reality. So it's like I'm going to be talking about us coming back to self, coming back to who we are, which goes across all of those divisions of locality. And the accidental thing of which European took who and where and so forth. So that's something which I think is important. It also, this worldview stresses the collectiveness of the person, because the person is perceived not as an individual, but as a person that takes on meaning by being connected to other persons. That's the African reality. So you have a Zulu saying, anybody know it? Say it louder.
Muntu, nga bantu.
Okay, it's one of my students there. A person is a person because there are people. In other words, you can't even be a person if you are not in some way connected to other people. Can't perceive of what that would mean. You wouldn't have a real existence. Well, I'm arguing that we can use these concepts now in terms of the healing of our people and in terms of organizing pan-Africanist or forms and councils and so forth. Another thing is that in the African worldview, we see spirit as energy and as force. We have difficulty talking about spirit. Those of us who have been really, really trained in this European context. Difficulty in talking about that. It becomes, some people call it spookism. I ain't going to name names. Some people say it's not real. Now let's get real. Let's get practical. But spirit in the African concept is about energy. There ain't nothing more real than energy. On all levels. Okay? Force. We are faced with the challenge of making our collective energy forceful. How do you do that as an African people? You come together. Okay? As Africans in pan-Africanist organization. So I'm showing how the worldview can lead us there.